Welcome to Stuck in My Mind podcast, the show where we dive into the mind of a regular guy on his road to self-discovery. You'll hear everyday people just like you share the latest topics, personal stories, and things they've learned along the way. And now, please welcome your host, Wise.
And welcome to another episode. I am your host, WIZE. I have a very special guest. He's a baby boomer, all the 4 kids, 6 grandchildren, and he's here to talk about his books. Welcome to the show, Grandpa Jeffrey. What's going on, Grandpa?
Hey, I appreciate you calling me and asking me. This is great.
Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for coming on. So, all right. So we're here to talk about your book, your books, because like me, I am a grandfather of 2 beautiful boys, and they mean the world to me. So I can imagine what your grandkids and your kids mean to you.
Oh yeah, the name of the book is I Don't Want to Turn 3, and it's by Gramps Jeffrey, which is obviously me. And it was based on a true story. Living this past year because of the pandemic that's caused by the COVID-19 in isolation, except for being able to be with my family and a few friends, gave me a special time to kind of watch and interact with these grandkids. And I got to tell you, what a trip, because I've got 6 grandkids. All 6 of them have completely different personalities. The one thing they do have in common is their sense of curiosity and how excited they get when they do accomplish something. So watching them grow year to year, is really how they interacted is the basis for this book.
Okay, so is it based on all 6 of your grandchildren?
Yes, what happened was during COVID, I had them all here for about 6 weeks. Now, the way I live here in Arizona. I've got 2 of them in Arizona. I've got 2 that were in Austin and 2 are in Orlando. So they're scattered all over, but they came in, during the isolation for a time. So that's what it was all about, was observing and watching them during this time that they were all together. What goes through a toddler's mind, the parents are so desperate to kind of understand, when does a toddler understand the difference between, me and us? So this book kind of explores all of that. And I am convinced that what happened in my family is the same thing that happens with every single family around the world. And so that's why I wanted to share that with everyone.
Yeah, because I know when I was furloughed from work, I got to spend some time with my grandson, and because he actually lives here with us anyway now, but I wasn't at work. I was more home, and I was able to. But and he was not 1 just yet, but it was great having him, being able to spend time with him, and see him grow, and it's amazing, like seeing his personality grow and seeing everything that he's learning and all. So it was amazing to be able to sit here and see this.
Yeah, the real theme of the book is, at what age do you start to take responsibility for your actions? Is it 3 years old? Is it 13? Is it 23? I'm a baby boomer, so I've got plenty of people that are 63 that still aren't taking responsibility for their actions. So it, as a baby boomer, trying to understand, how the world has evolved since I was 3 years old, is also part of the story. My parents didn't have cell phones. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have cable TV. They didn't have remotes. I was my dad's remote. He said, "Son, go change the channel." That's the way it is. So, my parents' definition of discipline is completely different than the parents of today and how they discipline their kids. And so, is this a better time, a better place for children to grow up? I'll let your listeners kind of, decide on that, compared to how we were treated as we were growing up. So, so I did write this book for these grandkids. I did it because I wanted them to kind of experience it too. But it's an observation that I am sure just about every grandparent has seen as their kids start to evolve and grow up.
Oh no, it is. I was born in the 70s, so I was raised in the 80s and 90s, and these kids today don't know they don't know how easy they have it. It's we've been we've been the way we were disciplined was just completely different. Like now they believe in timeouts and stuff like that. We weren't raised in that generation. It was whatever my mom had near her.
Well, take it back to my generation. I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. Now, my parents and their generation, they really were the greatest generation because they saved the world. They saved democracy. They went through the Depression, they saved us with World War II. So it was a very disciplined group that was coming through because they had gone through all these craziness of the world, and they were very disciplined. So they believe in discipline for us too.
Yeah.
I remember, my brother Larry and I would get in trouble. My mother would say, "Wait till your dad gets home." And he'd come home and he'd whip out his belt and he would chase us around the kitchen table. That was discipline then. He had this fraternity paddle that he also used on us. And
Yeah.
one night when they were gone, my brother and I went into his closet. We grabbed his fraternity paddle. And we lived up in Ohio, and it was late fall, and there was lots of leaves on the ground. We buried the fraternity paddle in the leaves, and it snowed the next night. And that spring, we went out to look for it. It was gone. To me, that was a miracle. It was gone. It kind of relieved us of everything that was going on. But that was discipline back then. And then my generation wasn't as harsh as we were trying to get our kids to understand how to go. And this generation coming up, they're the best. They really are. You mentioned timeout. All three of my daughters do the timeout thing, and the kids, they react to it. Because they don't want to be isolated from their friends and their cousins. They don't want to have to stare at a wall all by themselves. So that does work. In fact, another way, this is a great way that I saw discipline. We were in Austin a couple weeks ago for my granddaughter Grace's third birthday party. So she was turning 3. So as I was watching her, I was reliving what the other kids had gone through. And so, she's there on the floor with her brother, who is 4.5, and they're starting to fight over a little truck. And she looks at him and she says to him, "I need my space." Gets up, walks over to the couch, sits by herself. And then her brother looks at her, he says, "I need my space too." And he goes to the other side of the room. Now, they didn't learn that on television. I can tell you that their mother probably got so frustrated with them one day and says, "I need my space," and walks away. And that's how they learned. And it works. So yeah, this the way we're raising kids, it's probably better. I really think it's better.
Of course, it's a different time. It's a completely different time from when I grew up and when you grew up. And because my mom, she turns 84 this year, so she's from that generation. She's experienced a lot, and she wasn't a major disciplinarian. She said if she had to, she laid down the law, but for the most part, she didn't discipline. But I knew what I could do and what I couldn't get away with. So yeah, it's completely different time, and especially with technology, with all the technology they have now, these kids are so much smarter than we were. Like these kids know how to program. Like my little nephew probably knows how to program his TV or his pad or his iPad better than his parents does.
Yeah, I am thoroughly convinced that this latest generation, the kids 1 to 10 years old, are the smartest generation this country has ever produced. And it starts with exactly what you're saying. They start to learn electronics much earlier. They understand the internet. We didn't have that. We're growing up. I mean, the internet is so we then have to supplement that with our experience. And you're talking about your mother and my generation. We've got decades of experience, and as you get older, you do get wiser. It just happens because you make a lot more mistakes. You learn a lot of things. You do get wiser. So I thoroughly believe that we, as baby boomers and your mom's generation, we have got to be involved with these kids. They've got to be able to take the electronic things they're learning, but also we've got to get involved in what they understand and how they learn. So, is your mother very involved in the raising of your kids?
Well, not well, my kids are grown. My kids are in their 20s, but my mom has over 20 something grandchildren.
Wow.
Because there were six of us. There were five males and my sister. So she has a lot of grandkids. So at that time she raised quite a few.
So, what kind of memories do you think your kids have of their grandmother?
Well, it's different from mine because I'm sure she spoiled them more than she. But more example is because I was like, I'm the youngest of six children, and she had me later on in life. She had me when she was almost 40 years old. So by that time, my siblings were 11. The closest one to me is my sister. She has me by 11 years.
Wow.
All the other ones have me by quite more. I actually have nieces and nephews that are my age, and I was raised with them. So I was raised more with my nieces and nephews, which are her grandchildren, than I was with my own siblings. So they're to me more. I'm closer to them than I am with my own siblings. So it was a crazy dynamic, but she she showed for me. I tell everybody, I was raised by a single mom and my sister. Even though I have older brothers, they too played the major part in raising me. She's the one who made sure I went to Little League baseball, went to football, went to anything I wanted to do. My mom made sure I did it. So her grandchildren, she spoiled them. When they would come over, they would eat. She would prepare every single one of them whatever they wanted to eat. It didn't matter. When I was growing up, it was you're gonna eat whatever I cook. When the little grandkids came over, is if one wanted mac and cheese, she would make a mac and cheese. If one wanted a bowl of cereal, she would give him a bowl of cereal. So it's different. I guess people go, you can always your grandchildren. At least you could spoil them and then just send them to their parents.
Oh yeah, that is the great thing about grandparents is you can give them back. Now, but we also help create memories for these kids, and that's one of the purposes. Because I'm sure that they all have great memories of their grandmother. For instance, but you can create negative memories too. I had a couple of my grandkids here from Arizona. We got the chance to babysit them for the weekend because their parents went out of town last weekend, and so we decided to really do the grandparent thing. We played the baseball and soccer, and we went to the museum. And we got this Wii. I don't know if you remember that from 20 years ago, but you go on the screen, you play, and tennis and all that kind of stuff. We read them books, and we're in Arizona, so we went swimming. So we did all the great things that grandparents are supposed to do. And then Saturday night, my wife says to Levi, who's 6, who's a very picky eater, you need to eat this food. And he says, I'm not going to eat it. And she says, you're not going to be able to watch television. You're not going to be able unless you eat this food. And so, we take the kids back, and Olivia, who's 9, tells her mom and dad, oh, we had a great time. We played soccer. We watched TV. We did all the great things. The only thing that Levi remembered the whole weekend was his grandmother made him eat something he didn't want to eat. So we create those memories, good and bad. And so that's why, one of the reasons I wanted to write this book is to help create some of those memories. And it's important for grandparents to really get involved in the raising of the grandkids. Now, you hit upon it. The real key, it takes a village to raise a kid. I mean, if you remember the book from Hillary Clinton a long time ago, it takes a village. Well, that's the truth. you know, especially if you have a single mom or single dad, you gotta have your aunts and your uncles and your cousins. Everybody's got to be involved. You all got to influence that, and that's why it's important for grandparents to be part of that village and to lead the village. Because again, they know stuff a lot of other people don't know. So you've got to be able to. I think one of the things that we've got to get disciplined as grandparents is we got to make sure that we are reading books to these little kids. Because when you're a kid, you saw it with your 1-year old, but as they get older, 2, 3, and 4-year old, you know, it's necessary for us to teach children how to think, not what to think. They can do their own opinions, but we have to teach them at an early age about how to think. And sitting down and reading a book with a child, and again, I want them to read my book, but there's 100 other great books out there. It's just so important because if you step back a second and think about it, as you're reading a book, again, picture a grandparent and a child. It creates a bonding moment. It gives you 15, 20 minutes where they're not running all over the place, and you have the chance to really, become part of their life so they can create these memories. It also, reading the book to these kids supports listening skills. You and I know as we get older that listening skills are the most important skill we have, because if we don't listen, then we can't react, we can't sell, we can't do anything. So sitting down and spending that 15, 20 minutes helps create this for these little kids. And you start teaching them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to go on. It helps with their cognitive and language development. There's words in the book they don't understand, so you can explain it to them. Or just helps with that building a language and making them just a little bit smarter. And then it also helps with attention span. Again, kids bounce off the walls. You got 20 minutes with them sitting in your lap. This is attention span. So I encourage all of your listeners to make sure that you become part of a routine in reading to the kids and having them read books, because it's just so important in their growth.
Oh, it helps. It works. It helps me because I just started podcasting 2 years ago, but people have offered me voiceover work and all this stuff. So when I read a book for my grandson, I practice my voices and entertain and make different voices for every character, and it gives me an opportunity to bond with him. But at the same time, it also gives me an opportunity to work on building my voiceover skills.
Yeah, 2 for 1. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And because also when you're reading books, again, going back to the idea that we need to teach children how to think. The smartest thing to do is, when everybody's got 10, 15 books in their house, let the kid pick out the book to read that night. Let them go out, because then they'll have some ownership in the book. And before you even sit down to read the book, just ask your child, what do you think is going to happen in the book? Again, we got to keep getting them to think, keep getting them to grow. And then as you're sitting there and reading the books to these kids, ask them, who are the characters in this book? Where is the setting? Let them keep thinking, participate in what you're doing. What you want to go and ask them, does anything in this book sound familiar to you? And can you relate to any of this? And then obviously when you're done, you want to say, what was your favorite part of the book and why? Much like when you're having dinner with them, you want to ask them, what did you do today? What was the best part of your day? Do the same thing when you're reading a book. Again, get these kids to think, because if we can get them to think, they take what they're learning from what's going on the internet, they are going to be our greatest generation.
Yeah, they will be. They will be. So is this your first children's book?
Yes, it is my first children's book.
Because I know you wrote other books. So you went from writing books on how to beat Walmart and the secrets of retailing to writing a kid's book. But how was that how did you go from there to where you're at? I guess it's because of your grandchildren.
Well, I guess the journey started. I started writing when I was very young. I did a backpack through Europe when I was in college for 11 weeks. And on the backpack, we slept in youth hostels, took the trains, hitchhiked, did everything that you're supposed to do when you're a kid doing backpacks. But I decided to keep a journal. And so every day I'd write what we were doing, kind of people we were interacting with, just the general kind of thing of backpacking and living for 11 weeks. So, I wrote it and I put it away. And about 10 years later, my best friend who we went to backpacking with, he says, "You should read that journal again." He says, "It's an amazing thing." So I didn't start out to be a writer. I started out to be a business guy. And so that's what I've been most of my life. So then what happened, I opened up our business, which became the premier business to business site on the internet, where we sell in case quantity to small businesses all over the world. Our customer base were the moms and the pops who are surviving and thriving as the chains. And so I was getting all these phone calls from the customers saying, "How do I do that? How do I do that?" So I wrote this book. I don't know if you can see on the screen, but it's called The Secrets of Retailing, How to Beat Walmart. And it's a step-by-step guide. It's 15 chapters on how to run a business. So it is, how to hire people, find your location, where to find products, how to market both on the internet and both traditionally. And so that's why I wrote that book. And what happened was Ariana Huffington from the Huffington Post, I don't know if you're familiar with the Huffington Post,
I know who she is.
read the book. And so she asked me to contribute. So I've written over 100 articles for the Huffington Post. And these articles are all small business, entrepreneurship, and so forth. But what happened, because our prices were so inexpensive, that when Katrina hit down in Louisiana 20 years ago, and all these people were needing help, we were getting, because we had all these words that were organically listed or for on the internet, we were getting calls from churches and schools for products. We'd ship down underwear and socks and toothpaste and toothbrushes, and then once they opened up the trailers, we would do the kitchens and the bathrooms and the bedrooms. And so it opened up a whole idea that this nonprofit world is so underserved, and today they're a major part of the business. And so that's how I got involved in many of my articles were on the homeless and education and the elderly, and that's how I got involved in the nonprofit world. So that kind of the background is, if anybody's read the book, in the end of the book, the kids give everything to the homeless kids in their town. And that's where that kind of came from. But the book is a true story, because as we were going through all this, Olivia, who's the oldest one, the one that just turned 9, she's the one that came up with the idea with the kids that, we should give this to the homeless. My school's having a drive. And that's how that evolved. So I guess, to make a long story short, that's my career.
Hey, that's a pretty good. That's amazing. The career. Listen, not everybody gets to write for the Huffington Post. Huffington Post is a recognized paper. So, hey, that's an amazing. And then to be able to turn that into then to be able to go write a children's book for your grandchildren, that's leaving something for them as well. They can go about, hey, they can read this to their kids and to their grandchildren, and be like, hey, my grandpa wrote this book for me.
Well, what's interesting, when they're all here during Thanksgiving, they're all here, and Olivia grabs the books, and she grabs 3 of her little cousins, and for some reason they go hide underneath my desk. They don't know I'm on the corner over there listening, and she's reading the book to these kids, and they're enthralled. And Levi says, "That's me in the bathtub," and Jackson says, "That's me with my dinosaurs," and they're very involved in that. And so the plan is, the next book is, I Don't Want to Turn 4. In fact, Olivia came to me again. She just turned 9. She came to me last week. She says, "I've got a great idea for a book that I don't want to turn 10. And I said, "You don't want to turn 10? Why don't you want to turn 10? She says, "Well, I got to start worrying about, I'm going to have to drive a car. I got to start worrying about those things." I said, that's another 7 years away. She says, "Yeah, but I got to worry about going to college. I don't know what college to go to or how to pick it up." I said, that's 9 years away. Why are you worrying about that now? And I guess it kind of shows you the mindset of these kids today. So she wants to write the book, I Don't Want to Turn 10. So yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Oh, listen, I think you might have another writer right there in Olivia. I think she might be The next right in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my main mission with this book really is to get grandparents more involved in just the bringing up of their kids and the communicating with their kids. I'm in the generation, the baby boomers, where 40% of my generation really doesn't care that much about the grandkids. Their philosophy is, oh, we raised our kids. Hopefully, we raised them well, and they're going to raise the kids. I got my other stuff to do. Well, we got to get involved in the raising of the kids. We've got to be a role model with these kids, so they understand what's going on. Now, the problem is it's a lot different. When I was growing up, again, in a small town in Ohio, my uncle lived up the street. My grandmother lived 2 blocks away, and it was great. The whole family was in one place. But in today's world, we're so scattered around this country. And using me as an example, I got 2 in Orlando and 2 in Austin and 2 in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're scattered all over the place. So how do you become part of the story with these kids, specifically when they're not near you? And we've got to do that. I'll share what we did, and then hopefully your listeners will come up with other ideas that they can do. But, so I had them here during that time, and then they went home. Well, the one thing that we found out is, for some reason, all of these little kids love dinosaurs. I don't know why, but it's not just my kids, it's their friends. They all talk about dinosaurs. These 2, 3, 4-year-old kids, they can name all the dinosaurs that are out there. They can tell me if they eat meat or, where they fight. For me, dinosaurs are small, medium, and large. That's what they look like to me, but they are really into these dinosaurs. So we decided, we had 6 little dinosaurs we kept here in the house. And so we decided that once the others went away, when they went home, that we're going to create where the dinosaurs do something different every night. So, for instance, we had the dinosaurs in the refrigerator, and they're eating the blueberries. And the next night we had the dinosaurs by the sink with grandma washing the dishes, and they had soap on their nose. The next night we had them playing the piano. The next night we had them walking up the steps. So we put together 50 different places around our house, inside and out, that every night the dinosaurs were doing something different. Well, again, when you're a grandparent and your kids are away, they don't call you. I mean, they got so many other things on so many other priorities. They don't remember to call your grandma, grandpa. But what you want to try to do is be part of the routine. So what happened was, once they saw the dinosaurs are doing something every night, after they took their bath and read their book, we became part of the routine. And they would say to their mom and dad, "Let's call Gramps. What are the dinosaurs doing tonight?" So, they would call on my wife's iPhone. We do Facebook, and they would say, "Where's Gramps? Where's Gramps? What are the dinosaurs doing?" And so that was our way of staying in touch with our kids. And I'm sure that your listeners can come up with all kinds of different ways too.
That's really cool, man. That's definitely really cool. Like my nephew who actually was in the room, it was in the studio before I got in to make sure he wasn't here for long by himself. But his son, who's 4 years old, loves dinosaurs. Loves them. He can name them all.
Yeah.
Like my nephew be like, I don't even know half of these dinosaurs, and if he says the name wrong, his son corrects him like, no, dad, that's not how you say it. That's not how you say it. And so for Christmas, it was so backed up. I ordered him an electronic dinosaur that you can control remote. So he should be receiving it soon. It was in back order, but I'm excited for him to play with it because he loves dinosaurs so much.
Yeah. And again, if that's how we get our kids to think and teaching them to think, then that's a great method. Yeah, you're right. They all know these words. How do they know those big words? I don't know.
Yeah, the Triceratops. Well, like at 4 years old, I didn't know what a Triceratops was.
That's for sure.
But oh man, Gramps Jeffrey, I love this, man. This is why I do my podcast, is to be able to sit down with people like you, to have you tell your story, and just hopefully people could listen and be like, hey, maybe I might try something similar like that with my grandchildren, or even with my children. It's just the fact to be able to communicate with this younger generation and show them the way.
Yeah, we were talking about the questions to ask your kids as you're reading a book or at dinner time, to help them begin to think. There's one question that I want to leave your listeners with that I think we should ask our kids every day. And you'll find that when you ask them this question, they don't know what they're talking about. The question we need to ask them is, what did you do today that was nice to someone else? Now, the first time you ask your kid that, they'll say, "What are you talking about?" But then if you ask that every day, "What did you do today that was nice to someone else?" Then all of a sudden, instead of stealing the trucks from their cousin, they'll give the truck to the cousin. And if you start to ask them that, then they're going to anticipate it, and they will go out of their way to try to do something nice for someone that day, so they can report back to you and says, "Here's what I did." Can you imagine in our country, in this world, that if this generation is kind of raised with that thinking, how different we will be to each other?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Kids are amazing. Kids don't see color. Kids don't see sex. They don't see none of that. They just see another child in front of them that they want to play with, and they're amazing. And they bond and they communicate. Like I have like we just celebrated my grandson's third birthday the other day, and we took him to a bouncy house, and he's autistic, and he doesn't really he doesn't speak. He's 3 years old. He doesn't speak yet. He's going to therapy, but he was in the little bouncy house, and a little girl came in, and we explained to her what he couldn't speak and all that. But she would go and she would play with him, and he would laugh and jump and excuse me, and just seeing this interaction, it just shows you that these kids aren't born with hate. They're born to love each other. They're born with nothing but love in their hearts and wanting to be able to play with all these other different kids. So to me, I love stuff like that. I feel to be able to see these kids interact, like you said, if these kids continue to interact this way and show this compassion and this love and be raised like how you said, what good thing did you do for someone else? You're absolutely right. This world would be a completely different place.
Can you imagine if our generations acted like that now?
We me personally, I try to help anyone I can, like even with the I guess it's just the way my mom instilled in me that if you can help someone, because our house was always open to anyone who came to visit from anywhere, and if they didn't have some place to stay, my mom opened the door. She and to me that was important because it showed me that, listen, if you help people out, if they don't have it, if they need some place to stay or they need some food, my mom was that person to provide that. So that showed me compassion and showed me love, and me in return, I instilled that in my kids, and hopefully they'll show their kids that as well.
Yeah. I mean, just think if the whole world did that.
Yeah, it'd be a completely different world. We wouldn't be so divided and so and all this craziness.
Yeah.
But Grandpa Jeffrey, I appreciate you being on. Now is the part of the show where you get to plug away, let everybody know where they can find the books, where they can find you.
Sure. The title of the book is I Don't Want to Turn 3. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and about 100 other places on the internet. Or you can find it on my site. It's GrampsJeffrey.com. That's Gramps Jeffrey, JEFFREY.com. And if any of your listeners will talk about any of this thing, please contact me. It's GrampsJeffrey@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to anybody listening about what we can do to help improve this world today.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you once again for. We were supposed to record last year, and I was just recovering over COVID. I'm feeling much better. Still a little fatigued, but I appreciate you being able to reschedule and coming on today and doing the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, so hold on 1 second. I'm going to do my shout outs and we're going to finish, but I want to speak to you a little bit after we finish recording. All right, so now it's time for shout outs. Big shout outs to my Real Wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady, Fina. Love you, baby, and appreciate everything you do for me. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless you. Be safe. And you know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.
Thanks for listening. Listen on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, and TuneIn. Find us on social media on Twitter at @wise_b_blunt, Instagram at @wise_b_blunt, and a Facebook fan page, www.facebook.com/wise76. Check back soon for new episodes. Until next time, peace out.